Welcome back to the channel. My name is Rochelle and this is Brampton Gardener, and I am here for a little garden rant. So I have seen over the years so many disagreements and arguments and confusion over your growing zone versus starting your seeds. When do I start my seeds? When do I start my seeds? Biggest question you can see on any of the gardening boards, especially this time of year. Most of us gardeners are itching at the seams to get our seeds started and get our hands back in the soil and just get the growing season off to a start. I'll tell you, there is no set rule, no set day that tells you that yes, you can start your seeds right here, right now. Because everyone's climate, everyone's growing conditions, everyone's room to grow things is different. And a lot of people think that it revolves around your zone. So we see a lot of people commenting, oh, well, I'm in a zone 6, I'm in a zone 7, I'm in a zone 8. What zone are you? What time do you start your seeds in that zone? It doesn't matter. It does not matter what zone you are for starting annual seeds. If you're starting some perennials and you want to make sure that the perennials are going to survive in your zone year after year and come back, then yes, that's when your zone is going to come into consideration. But for growing your fruits, your vegetables, and your annuals, what zone you are does not matter one bit. The only thing you need to know is your last frost date. That is the only thing you need to know, because I'm going to show you a map here, and this is going to show you all the zones. So a lot of people think that the zone that they're in is regional. So maybe they're part of the state or they're part of the country is the zone, and that is not the case. So the zone has nothing to do with your climate or your weather. The zone is chosen and decided on by the coldest average temperature that your area reaches each winter. So you might only hit that cold temperature for say 3 days, 4 days, a week at most. Some people in the exact same zone might be at that minimum temperature for 2 or 3 months. So their climate, their growing season is going to be completely different than yours, even though you're in the same zone. So you need to go by your last frost date. So I am in zone 5B, Southern Ontario, Canada, and my last frost date is May 9th. So that is the date that I use to decide when to start my seeds. Now, I will post the link below and hopefully get a little bit of on the screen, if I can figure out how to do that, of Johnny's website. So John, amazing seed and gardening website. You've probably heard of them. They're pretty famous, but they have some incredible tools in their gardening section for garden tools. So one of them, and I will link it down below as well, is the seed starting list. So you just type in the top line, it says last frost date. So you type in your last frost date and it just automatically will tell you when to start every kind of seed. So he has vegetables on there, there's herbs, there's fruit, there's flowers. Everything you can imagine is pretty much listed on that chart. And so if it's not listed on the chart, but it's similar to something else that's on the chart, go with that. Another thing that gets very confusing is last frost date. What does that mean? So your average last frost date is a date that is compiled scientifically of the last time you're theoretically supposed to get frost. This does not mean that that is a day that it is safe to plant your tender annuals outside. No. So if you look at the Johnny's list, it will tell you this is your last frost date, this is when you start your seeds, and then it's going to tell you when it's probably safe to plant those seeds out. And you will notice that that safe to plant out date is usually about 2 weeks past your average last frost date. So here in Southern Ontario, it's pretty common knowledge that you plant out on the May 2-4 weekend, Queen Victoria birthday, Queen Victoria weekend. It's a big holiday here at the end of May, and it can be anywhere from say May 17th to the 24th, 26th, depending on where it lies. That is kind of a set date that a lot of us here in Ontario use. Some people will go to beginning of June for super tender stuff, or like peppers that really like it hot. So a lot of times when I was trying to figure out what is my last frost date, to know when to start my seeds, everyone was saying, oh, May 24, May 24, you can't plant out before May 24, that's the last frost. And I'm like, no. That's when it's safe to plant out. That is not the last frost date. They are two completely separate things. So in order to find your last frost date, it's pretty simple, especially I think if you're in the US, you can just Google it. You can just say, you know, type it in last frost date and type in your zip code. Here in Canada, I had a lot harder time. Like they were kind of all over the place. And like where I lived, like my town and then the town next to me were quite a ways off. And I couldn't like pinpoint it down, and I really wanted to get a specific date because I was going to be doing cool flowers last year for the first time. And so cool flowers are flowers that you can plant out 6 to 8 weeks before your last frost date. So you need to know when your last frost date is and count back 6 weeks to plant out. But then that's just to plant them out, and those are the seedlings. So then you have to count back another 6 to 8 weeks before that to know when to start your seeds. So I really wanted to nail down that last frost date just to be safe. And since they can go out before the last frost date, it wasn't a big deal if I was off for a few days anyways, but I did want to get a number. And so finally what I did, I just sent a message, I sent an email to my local, the Brampton Horticultural Society, and I said, for seed starting, what is traditionally the last frost date? And so they were very nice. They said the last frost date for Brampton is considered to be May 9th, and but don't plant out until, you know, May 24 weekend. So I was like, yeah, I understand. So that is just my little rant on explaining when people kind of argue about, oh, when can I start seeds? I can't start seeds, yada, yada, yada. You can start seeds whenever you want, provided you have the right conditions. So what are the right conditions? Now, I will tell you that I have started seeds for years, going back as long as I've been living in this house, 16, 17, 18 years. And I never used grow lights. I just did them in my bedroom window because it's a big south-facing window. But I didn't start my seeds until around March. And so by March, I was getting enough daylight coming through the windows that I had plenty of light for the plants, and I didn't have any issues with legginess or anything like that. I put a fan on them and I just used the window to grow them. But now that I want to start things sooner, starting in January, I am starting a few things this week, and there's just not enough daylight yet. So if you are going to be doing any growing in January in the northern climates where your days are much shorter, then you will need to supplement with some kind of light. So you can use fancy grow lights, you can go use shop lights, any kind of light pretty much works. It doesn't have to be super fancy. You don't have to worry about all the different color ranges if you're just starting the seedlings. That only comes into play when you're trying to produce, you know, flowers and fruits indoors. Then you have to take all of that into consideration. But if you're just doing it to start your seedlings to get them ready to go outside, you can use any kind of light lamp or anything like that you want. Keep in mind how big this plant is going to be before you can plant it out. So if it's a tender hardy annual, say a tomato plant, that's an intermediate tomato plant. If I start the seeds now, this plant is going to be huge by the time I plant it outside in May, end of May. So I could do it. I can totally do it, but I have to take into consideration the size that this plant is going to be and the size container that it is going to need to be in. So I will have to have it in probably some kind of a 5-gallon container, bucket, so to speak, and I'm going to have a tomato cage on it and plenty of light. I'm going to have to be fertilizing it and all of that, so that when I plant it out or when it goes out into the garden, it probably will stay in that pot. It will have everything it needs, and I can just transition it out and it will be fine. And that's totally doable, but most of us don't have room to do that. Or you might have room to do that for one plant. For me, I will be starting my peppers because peppers take forever. They're very, very slow growing, and you can prune them. Actually, it's recommended to prune them. So you can keep them smaller and keep them into a more contained space. And I will be able to have room for that in the grow room that I'm doing. It's basically, my grow room is a shelf in my bedroom in the window with grow lights. So I don't have a lot of space, and so I do have to be careful what plants I'm going to be starting. So the things that I will be starting are all things that are cold tolerant, all things that I will be planting outside in March. So come March here, we are still, you know, well below freezing. There could be snow on the ground, all of that. I'll have to wait until, you know, some of that clears. But the plants that I will be starting this week are going to be my pansies and my ornamental kale. That's it for flowers, because they are cold tolerant flowers, but they are super, super slow growers. So the rest of my cool flowers I will be planting probably next month. I'm gonna have to double check my calendar, my dates. I haven't really done all of it yet. I'll be doing a video on how I organize when I start what, but I did know from my marks last year, start your pansies as soon as you can. So pansies are going in and ornamental kale is going in this week. Also, my dwarf tomato seeds are going in because like I said before, the size is what really matters on those, and dwarf tomatoes can actually be grown in a 6-inch pot. So they can stay in a nice little pot. They will stay nice and tiny until I have time to get them out into the garden in May. So I'll be able to contain those in the house. Hopefully, depending on how many I start. I won't be starting all of them, just a few to give me a head start on the tomato season. And I will be starting a few herbs, some greens, and my onions this month. So I'll be doing more of a video on what I'm starting, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a heads up when people say, don't start your seeds, it's too soon, or if you're just itching to start, because I know this time of year, it can be very hard, it can be very depressing. For a lot of us, we use gardening as our therapy, and we like to be out there, we like to be doing things, and just seeing something sprout out of the soil and growing, it can bring so much joy and a spark to your day that, you know what, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. So find something small, someplace small that you can grow something. Even if you just have a lamp by your bed and you want to, start a little basil plant or whatever it is, do it. Bring joy to your day. Don't let other people telling you, oh, you can't start yet, you can't do this and that. Anyone can start seeds at any time, as long as you understand the seed, the plant, what it needs, and what your conditions, what you're willing to do to make that seed possible. I mean, there are a lot of people that grow indoors 365 days a year, especially in colder climates. They might have a total grow room in the basement. So you can't say, no, you can't start your seeds yet. Just start the right seeds and do it the right way. And good luck. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that notification bell down below. Hit subscribe, hit like, shout it out. Join me for this journey of growing seeds in 2022.